Hey, good morning, everybody. Good Tuesday morning. It's your buddy Choppadong. We are going to do the DFS minute today, NHL style, being that it's a full slate over there. And we're going to talk a little bit about finding the right teams, right stacks, and how to put yourselves on those plays that possibly lead to those winning lineups. But I want to at least let you know that we've unlocked the breakaway article today, the NHL breakaway article. Easy to follow me out on Twitter. Follow DFS Army at DFS Army out on Twitter, and get access to some of those articles and some of those premium content pieces that we are occasionally unlocking, being that we've obviously made one free today. You can also become a VIP by clicking the link down there in the comment section, dfsarmy.com, using the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, to trigger 20% off each and every month you remain a VIP and get the coaching that answers the questions that you're going to have from using the tools that you're going to unlock when you become a member. So, easiest thing to do today is to dive in just a smidge. I mean, I don't know if you guys play poker or not. There's a big correlation between poker players and DFS players. And so I'm kind of doing a little bit in my spare time when I run out to casinos and play a little bit of cards where we're trying to find interesting hands, put them in my pinned tweet, and we can discuss those if you want. Some of them will be mine. Some of those will be what I see out and about, but it's something that I want to try and do as I'm trying to grow my own poker game a little bit too, and I guess learn to beat the live casino game. I'm not a perfect player, I'm not a perfect coach, but I tend to share what I learn as I learn it with people. It's just kind of what I like to do. So if you want to interact there, feel free. But let's dive into the NHL research station today and open it up and show you what this guy's pointing out with Boston and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay may be a target tonight. Boston 1 is always in play, but they don't look like they're in a phenomenal spot tonight. As we slow down and let the machine load up here, we should have a pretty big slate to look at. Probably not interested in this game. I'm looking for implied team totals over 3.5. If I can find them, St. Louis may be in play. Going against the Rangers, Rangers do allow some goals against, so that might not be a terrible way to go. But the Blues have not been as good on the road this year as they have been at home. In fact, their last 10 road games, what are they, 3-5? With a little bit lower goals against, higher goals against, so maybe a contrarian play would be to play the New York Rangers if you've got the stones and cojones to do it. Ottawa, nobody's ever stacking Ottawa these days. The 4.4 in Pittsburgh against is going to draw a lot of eyeballs. You can run a contrarian method of large slate, don't need them, fade them, hope they dud. Or you can take pieces of Pittsburgh. Either way is correct. It's just that one way is going to happen more often than the other, and when the less common way happens, meaning they dud, you do gain leverage on the rest of the field in tournaments and things like that. If you're elsewhere, you increase your chances of fighting fewer and fewer people out there on the leaderboards. Minnesota's been intriguing lately, notably some of their lines, like the Fiala line, has been putting together some decent scoring nights for cheap. Buffalo, some people might be focused on Jack Eichel. He's always a one-off in consideration. And I know Okposo down on the third line and even Olofsson up on the top line make for intriguing plays, but in the last 5 games, Olofsson hasn't scored a goal or hadn't posted a point. There's no implied team total on this one. I'd suggest, or I would expect Winnipeg is going to be in a better situation in terms of implied team total, but I don't know the number to maybe know how deeply I want to look into them right now. I don't know why this is loading so slow as we go, but Chicago at Anaheim, that's intriguing. Let's look through Chicago. They should be a little bit cheaper. I know Kubalik and Taves have been playing pretty well lately. Looks like even Saad has put a couple of goals in the bucket. Duncan Keith has been fine lately. There's 4 guys right there that you could stack. You could also come down here, tie Patrick Kane in with the power play 1. He's posted some numbers. He's always a threat. And it looks like the DeBrincat, the Cat, power play 1. This would be an intriguing power play stack tonight if you get a little lucky and get DeBrincat, Kane, Taves, Kubalik out there on the ice all together with Duncan Keith. You could take any 3 of those and know that they correlate. It's a good cash game type of setup if they're in the matchup that it shows they're in, because you get access with a Kubalik and a Kane, or a Kubalik and a DeBrincat, or DeBrincat and Duncan Keith. You're getting access in that pair to multiple lines of scoring, which means that if they score 2 or 3 goals, it can be spread out across the lines, the skating forwards, and you probably are getting access to those goals, which helps raise your floor in cash games. In GPPs, you're going to want to target something relatively specifically and hope it happens. So if you're stacking the power play, you're hoping for power play goals, because at even strength, these guys are not on the ice together. Just another way to think about today's slate. I would be interested in Chicago tonight. Edmonton coming on a back-to-back, going into Dallas, defensive team. Don't know how much interest I really have there. Of course, your Sagans, your Rattleoffs, whatever, are in play. Jamie Benn's been better lately. Vegas at a 4.0 implied team total, a lot of interest here. Typically, Vegas 2 is where I hang out with Pacioretty. I will put him in, or I'll correlate him on the power play. Put some defensemen in there like an Alec Martinez or a Shea Theodore that have power play ice time, are relatively inexpensive, and can put up decent floor numbers, while I'm hoping that some of these guys end up scoring the goal. Riley Smith would be okay, but it looks like Paul Stastny with 4 assists in his last 7 games. I'd rather have the 4 goals out of Riley Smith, honestly. But if you wanted to put those two together, I guess, in a pair, you probably could. But I would be more focused on this line down here. Seems to be they do a little bit more of the scoring, a little bit more of the punch. Even back to when a David Perron was back there on that line. It seemed like line 2 in Vegas was usually the line to be paying attention to. Toronto Maple Leafs 3.6 going into San Jose. San Jose is a bad team. Toronto out there on the road, out on the West Coast, is very, very intriguing. Don't know if they'll fall flat like Pittsburgh tends to do. But I would be very interested in a Zach Hyman type or a Mitch Marner type. Of course, your Matthews and Tavares are always in play, but those guys are pretty pricey. I might take some of the sub pieces around them, form a pair between a Hyman and Marner, and then go with more of a stack like a, Pacioretty, somebody like that, or even something a little bit bigger up top, being that these cheaper pieces are going to gain access to this line. And if you're a little bit lucky, again, Matthews sets them up and they score the goal for cheap, and that affords you to get into some of those bigger guys, like a Patrick Kane or somebody like that. You could certainly use them as one-offs. And being that runs down the gamut, there were about 3 teams there that I posted that I got excited about just on implied team total and a little bit of production alone. Let's run down to this stack finder really quick. Seems to be a fun tool to use. See if we can't find some cheap stacks like Chicago 1. Not a bad stack. Chicago 2. Can't tell if it's the 14.9 or the 13.5. My eyes moved over too quickly. It's the 14.9. So these would be the kind of places that I would be looking to go. 2.01 value, 2.14 value. I'd probably be focused on the top line if I was stacking the complete thing. If I'm looking at these, nothing really exciting stands out, but this 2.55 is at Pittsburgh 2. I would like to see some production out of Pittsburgh 2. So if I click this plus sign, open it up, and I notice that the big numbers coming out of Brian Rust. Now, Brian Rust hasn't scored a lot of goals, but the projections seem to like him quite a bit. Doesn't look like a lot's coming out of your Connor Sheary. Is that Sheary? Or is that Marlowe? It's Marlowe. So it looks like you'd be running more of a pair here between Malkin and Rust. That would be how I would use that stack, or how I would use that tool. Over here with a Crosby, Zucker, Sheary, there's not a lot of projected value in that price tonight, but those would be where you would go if you're going to play the Pittsburgh game. I do like the idea of that Malkin-Rust pairing. That's a pretty sexy little pairing. Come down here to the 2.22. Who's this? Montreal. I've liked Montreal off and on all year. Their second line with Nick Suzuki on it's been kind of awesome. And there he is. He's not scoring right now, but he is scheduled to bring some value. The line as a whole is scheduled to bring some value. I didn't see them as one of the teams that I would be focused on, so I may or may not use them tonight. But, you find your favorites when you play hockey. You find your favorite players, like your Nick Suzuki's, Jacob Branas, Oposos, whatever, that you don't mind boosting projections on and then having them appear in some of your lineups. Because if you play them relatively consistently, you get their good nights. You get their bad nights too, but you get their good nights. And when you get their good nights, it sets up the rest of your stacks if your stacks are right. So there's a couple of ways to think about daily fantasy sports, and one way that I've seen be very successful through the years is to take more of a season-long approach to daily fantasy sports. I mean, you can take some pretty terrible teams like a Chicago, and if you just run, say, 3 or 4 lineups, if you're an MME guy and you just run 3 or 4 lineups of Chicago, regardless of matchup, you're going to catch those nights they score 6 goals, and you're going to get it at very, very low ownership. You never really know when it's going to be, but you will have those nights. You can take the guesswork out of trying to time the DFS market all the time. A lot of times when you try to time the market, like day trading stocks, you can end up chasing your tail and always guessing wrong. If you pick a few consistent pieces, whether it's a Connor McDavid one-off all year long, Alexander Ovechkin all year long, whatever, and then build some of your teams around there. Like I would say, I just like to run Boston 1. I'm going to catch their good games. I'm going to catch their cold streaks, whatever. But I like Boston 1. So I stack those three guys almost every night with a portion of the lineups that I put out there. And then I fit various pieces around them and play the matchup game that way. But at least I've always got something steady in my lineups in Boston 1. Or, St. Louis 1 or Chicago 2 or whatever it is. Those are the kind of – I knew a guy that used to use the Arizona power play or Arizona line 3 when they were at home. And won tournaments based on it. Didn't know when it was going to happen, but those nights that they did score a couple of goals, he had the stack at low ownership, and bing. That's something going into baseball that we're going to talk about a little bit more. Kind of forming your favorites. So my favorites, Fiala right now, Kubalik shoots a lot, Brian Rust right now, Nick Suzuki is somebody that I just always gravitate towards. Jonathan Huberdeau in Florida, when Florida's on the slate, is another one that I love using as a one-off because he gets lower ownership, but he's having a monster year. He's having the kind of year that some of those top-rated studs are having, if you look up his cumulative stats, but he doesn't cost nearly as much. He's a $1,500 discount compared to those guys. Now, I don't need to know when he's going to have his good nights. I just know some nights they're coming. Most nights they're not. But when they do come and I happen to have him in a lineup with another stack that does fairly well, then I'm okay. I vary my stacks. I may kind of play the matchup game that way, but I generally have a player pool of one-offs that I've developed through looking at cumulative stats of the year or guys that just continually stay underpriced that I like using, and that allows me to put those value pieces in and around my lineups and build around that stuff. These are the types of details that, again, we can talk about as VIPs inside DFSArmy.com. So if this type of information is stuff that you want to learn more about or feel like it would help your game, I believe it would benefit you to take a peek at the VIP program at DFSArmy.com. So head down to the comments section, click the link, use the coupon code CHOP, CHOP, come inside, unlock the tools, get to know them a little bit, talk to the coaches, get to know them a little bit, and then start the conversations that are going to start making you a better player, because that's where people are winning money. That's where people are giving us praise for being a teaching first coaching site, and that's where people are becoming, in some cases, able to depend on some of the side income that they're generating, if not leaving their day jobs entirely. We've had both happen. Easy to do. Come on inside. Love to have you. Love to talk to you. I'm going to bail, but be looking for that free article today. Be looking for some of the free graphics that we're going to post along with it, and be looking to come into a full slate of NHL tonight and set yourself up for success. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to do at DFSArmy.com. I'm Chapadong. I'm out of here. I will talk to you guys in a couple of days.